Kong is taking a leading role in the development of licensing, an industry with huge growth potential in Asia. Reflecting that momentum, the Hong Kong International Licensing Show, in less than a decade, has become the largest fair of its kind in the region. Organized by the Hong Kong Trade Development Council, the 2011 edition welcomes more than 500 licensing properties, as well as exhibitors and industry experts from around the world. Among those on hand is Charles Riotto, president of the Licensing Industry Merchandisers Association, or LIMA. The trade association is a long-term partner of the Hong Kong International Licensing Show. Thank you, Mr. Riotto, for joining us. First of all, can you tell us what is the current state of the global licensing industry? Where do you see potential growth in the next decade?
I think most of the mature markets have been very flat, or maybe even a little bit down over the last couple of years, mainly because of the financial crisis around the world. So a lot of companies in these more mature markets are starting to look at other parts of the world for where their future growth is going to come. I think there's some degree of saturation too in some of the more mature markets. So certainly there's a lot of focus now being placed on markets like China, India, Brazil, Eastern Europe, as emerging markets where there's a growing middle class, more awareness and more desire for famous brands. And those are the areas where I think a lot of investment is going to be placed in the coming years.
How is the licensing market different in Asia compared with the West?
Well, it differs from the U.S. market in that I think a very high percentage or a higher percentage of licensing activity is focused on the entertainment sector, whereas in the U.S. it's a little more spread out over the different sectors. I really haven't seen too much activity here as far as sports licensing and corporate brand licensing, although I do think that's ready to start taking effect. But you know, certainly the entertainment sector, I think, is more overpowering of the entire industry. Also, in the way of reaching consumers, I think is a little bit different here. In China, there are restrictions on TV programming and movie distribution for Western companies, so they have to be a little more creative in how they reach their consumers. So I think we're going to see more internet marketing, more local programming like mall shows and theater shows and things like that, where you don't really see as much local programming in the United States as there appears to be in this market.
And how do you see the licensing market developing in China?
Well, I see a lot of demand from the growing middle class for brands that they're aware of, and particularly a lot of Western brands. I think there's a certain cachet to Western brands and a certain status to them for the Asian community. So I think there's a kind of a natural attraction. People want to be able to acquire those brands, and again, I think for children. I think they see a lot of the Western characters that are maybe a little bit different from the Asian characters. So there's kind of a newness to that they seem to be gravitating toward.
So where does Hong Kong fit in with the development of the licensing industry in the region?
I think because of the sheer size of the China market, that's still the main focus. But I certainly do see growth potential in other areas like the Philippines, Indonesia, Singapore, Thailand, and some of the other markets in this part of the world.
And finally, how does the Hong Kong Licensing Show help exhibitors find new markets in Asia?
Well, this is really, I think, the primary marketplace for the industry in Southeast Asia. I've been very impressed with the show on its opening day today. There's been a very nice cross-section of different types of companies that are exhibiting, and certainly not companies just from Hong Kong, but I've noticed that the other parts of Southeast Asia are very well represented at the show. So a lot of times just being at an event like this where you get to meet people, you see what types of licensing programs they're putting in place and what their plans are for the future can be a very important educational experience in itself.